welcome to this explainer. Let's just dive right in, shall we? Today, we're taking a truly fascinating journey into the mechanics of a literary form that we all interact with, but honestly, very few of us actually unpack. I'm talking about the fable. As students of literature, we're going to look past the charming illustrations today and explore these highly tuned instruments of storytelling. Because believe it or not, these stories have been shaping human morality and our cultural understanding for literally thousands of years.
To kick things off, I want to pose a question to you. It's our central question for today. Why do our most profound literary truths come from the mouths of talking turtles, sleepy dragons, and cunning spiders? It's a trope we completely take for granted, right? But when you really step back and think about it, endowing non-human characters with human-like behaviors and speech, well, that's a deliberate, brilliant choice by the storyteller. It absolutely shatters this perception of fables as just, simple bedtime stories, and it reveals a deeply ingrained psychological tool. To understand exactly how this works, we have to look at the foundational literary device at play here. The term anthropomorphism derives directly from the ancient Greek words anthropos, which means human, and morphe, meaning form. So in fiction and folklore, it's specifically the act of ascribing human personality, cognition, or conduct to non-human entities. We are talking about intelligent talking animals, sentient forces of nature, the whole shebang.
Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. First, anthropomorphism and human psychology. Second, a global literary tradition. Third, teaching morals through fiction. And finally, why fables matter today.
Part 1. Anthropomorphism and human psychology.
So before we can analyze the literature itself, we really need to understand the science behind it. And the crucial point here is that anthropomorphism is actually considered innate to human psychology. Modern psychologists characterize it as a cognitive bias. Basically, we acquire these extremely detailed frameworks of knowledge, what psychologists call schemas, about other humans very early on in our lives. And because this knowledge is just so readily accessible in our memory, we use these human schemas as a baseline to efficiently judge and relate to the non-human world. We're literally projecting human traits onto the world just to make it make sense to us. And that perfectly illustrates why this psychological bias is used so heavily in children's literature. Just look at these common tropes for a second. Friendships, honesty, the underdog, talking animals. By leaning into our natural inclination to anthropomorphize, writers can explore some really complex, heavy themes. I mean, think about it. When a sweet, fluffy, talking bunny confronts another character about stealing or lying, it is far less intimidating and honestly much more entertaining than a human adult doing the scolding. It just makes confronting our moral failures so much more accessible. Part 2. A global literary tradition. Okay, now that we understand the psychological why, let's explore the how. Fables are easily one of the most enduring forms of folk literature, and you can find them in almost every single country. We're going to look at the incredible contrast between two vastly different, yet equally profound storytelling traditions: the highly structured, written frame stories of ancient India and the dynamic, deeply connected oral traditions of Africa.
Let's dive into the Indian tradition first. India has this remarkably rich history of fables, with hundreds composed during the first millennium BCE alone. A prime example of this is the Panchatantra. This dates back to around 300 BCE and is attributed to Vishnu Sharma. Interestingly, the word tantra actually means weave, which perfectly points to its elaborate structure of nested narratives. Think stories within frame stories. And what's absolutely fascinating here is that humanity is not presented as superior to the animals. The casts are mixed together, and the animal dialogues are often really long, highly comical, and rely heavily on trickery and deceit to outwit their rivals.
Now, contrast that brilliantly with African oral traditions. Over here, the spoken word has been passed down for thousands of years. There is this deep, continuous, and highly respectful interaction with nature, the plants, the animals, the rivers. A fantastic example of this originates from the tribes of Ghana, the Anansi stories. Anansi is this absolutely incredible, almost godlike character, and he's often depicted as a cunning trickster spider. Much like the animals we saw in the Panchatantra, Anansi relies entirely on his wits. The focus is constantly on survival and outwitting much stronger, physically imposing animal foes to get exactly what he wants.
Part 3. Teaching morals through fiction. So how are these ancient cultural mechanisms practically applied today to teach social morals? We'll take a look at characters like Fino the Clever Fox. He tracks down a missing cake but realizes the thief was just a hungry raccoon. The moral there is that honesty and kindness solve problems way better than anger. Then you've got Titu the tiny turtle, proving once again that slow and steady effort leads to success against a boastful rabbit. A grumpy cat learns not to yell at a confused goat when the real culprit making all the noise is just a woodpecker, teaching us, of course, not to blame others before we know the truth. And Monty, the naughty monkey, discovers that hoarding his bananas isn't nearly as fun as sharing them. These talking animals map directly to vital moral lessons, acting as a very gentle, very safe mirror for our own human behavior.
And finally, part 4. Why fables matter today.
So, why does this specific form of storytelling even matter to us today? Well, I absolutely love this insight from the first-century philosopher Apollonius of Tyana regarding Aesop's fables. He noted that the fable was created to teach wisdom through fictions that are intentionally meant to be taken as fictions. As the quote says, by announcing a story everyone knows isn't true, the author tells the truth simply by the fact that he doesn't claim to be relating real events. The fable is a truly unique type of fiction because it is profoundly self-aware. It literally announces its own artificiality right out of the gate. And this brilliantly connects Apollonius's ancient Greek observation right back to the African oral tradition we were just discussing. The traditional Ashanti way of beginning tales of the trickster spider Anansi goes exactly like this. We do not really mean that what we are about to say is true. A story, let it come, let it go. It's just this beautiful, universal, cross-cultural understanding. The single most effective way to teach a profound human truth is through acknowledged, undeniable fiction. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder. We've seen how cognitive schemas make us relate to animals, right? And we've seen how Indian frame stories and African oral traditions use that exact psychological quirk to weave moral lessons into self-aware fiction. So here is the question. If our oldest truths are wrapped up in fiction, what do our modern fictions reveal about our deepest truths? Think about that the next time you crack open a book. Thank you so much for joining me today, and keep exploring.